I am in a school that is privileged to have 2,145 students. If you give me 1,000 per child, I'll be able to have 2 million. But there are others which have only 100 students. When you give them 1,000 per child, this school will only get 100,000. But the two schools are supposed to offer the same services. The two schools are supposed to source from the same market teaching and learning materials. But government has given capitation of 1,000 across board. We feel we must look at something that we can model almost to the equalization fund of county governments, so that schools that have very low population, can you think of a way in which they can be supported with an additional fund to be able to support them grow? That one is something we can think about as a nation and find a way forward. As I've already said, that the introduction of special tariffs, it is also important to note that as we integrate our children, both those with special needs with the normal ones, we need to think more about children with special needs. I think as a nation, and this I must confess, we've not thought much about children with special needs. So we need to engage more with the associations that deal with it. As I said, we have SHAC that deals with the special needs education teachers, and those will give us more insights to it in terms of infrastructure and in terms of what kind of facilities they need. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, you've talked about engagement with stakeholders in terms of changing or looking and improving on our education system. We truly want to say that is the way to go. I know it is 5 years now. We will be looking again to improve on the CBC. We know the teething issues that it is there, but as you said, it is the way to go. So it is important that we engage more with the stakeholders, the teachers, the clergy, and those that offer education, to ensure that as we make these changes, we are carrying everybody along so that we don't have any dissenting voices. And lastly is the empowerment of the board of management in our schools. We have board of management in our schools across the board, but we've not empowered them enough to be able to take decisions. Always the decisions are left pending, waiting for maybe the Ministry of Education to come and pronounce on those decisions they have made. Then the question is, why do we appoint them? Then we don't give them the powers to execute. It would be important for that, and especially on matters of discipline in our institutions. The discipline in our institutions of late has been going down because the boards of management have no powers of ensuring that this discipline is maintained in terms of government coming up with regulations to operationalize the Children's Act in our schools and other regulations that put more responsibility on the child when they are in learning institutions, rather than only looking at the right of the child and not adding and what is their responsibility. I know there are quite a number of people who would like to contribute towards this. I believe at the end of it, I have my colleague there from Kewota who would want to say a word. I know at the end, there's 2 sentences, and my colleagues, Kuria and Tim, they are also here. You will allow me, Your Excellency, after everybody has presented, they can add 1 or 2 in terms of basic education. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me, and may God bless you.
Mwalimu, sorry.
Okay.
I just want to understand a bit of, because we want to have a charter finally.
Yes.
No, we want to have an agreement of that is going to be written. So, yes. I know you have, you've talked about different enrollments.
Yes.
1,000, maybe 2,000, but there's a school that has 100, maybe 200. And yet they are supposed to hire certain standard services, whether you have 1,000 or 2,000 students, yes. or whether you have 100, you will need a secretary, you will need a bazaar, you need so many of those. And sometimes it becomes very difficult when you have 100 students. I think that's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
So you're suggesting, for example, that we should have maybe a minimum essential package to run a school.
That is what we are saying. A minimum essential package that is standard.
That is standard.
Then anything on top will depend on the kind of population the school has.
Okay.
But if we only go by population alone, we will always, the schools that are down there will continue to remain down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is what is contributing to inequality in education. That's why parents are taking their kids to schools, the big schools, because they can deploy the resources they get better and get quality.
Yes.
While on the other side, we should be building more access by making sure that we grow the smaller schools.
Because if we want to increase access, the smaller schools must be grown.
Must survive.
Because they will be available,
Yeah.
they'll be closer to the population.
Correct.
They'll be children will be closer home.
Yes.
And the parents will have confidence to take a child to the school closer, rather than struggling to take a child to Alliance, Machakos, which will be far away, so they have to spend on traveling.
Yes.
They have to spend again more because they have to pay for boarding services. But if we grow the smaller schools, bring them up in terms of infrastructure, in terms of well-resourced and available teacher, then the parents will build confidence.
So essentially, having a minimum package that is essential for a school to exist and to grow will improve access, because then you're making even the small schools available, and most of them are largely day schools, so they are cheaper.
They are cheaper.
So instead of a parent, so it's essentially bottom up.
Very true. Very true. They are cheaper, so the people will come. Very true. I totally agree with you. And that is the concept that we are having here. And that is our proposal. Grow the schools in the grassroots.
Yes.
And you may not need that child to leave that village looking for a school several kilometers away because it is well resourced.
Correct.
Yeah.
So on again the matter of infrastructure.
Yes.
At the moment, county governments, let me say, by virtue of operation of the law and the constitution, they are constrained from deploying county resources in putting up education infrastructure, except in ECD.
Yes.
Would then be your suggestion that maybe we can open up, the counties, where counties feel that there is pressure from the public and the resources from national government are not adequate. We can open up the county government space for them to deploy county resources in putting up full school infrastructure.
That one is true, because though the law has indicated that county governments are only dealing with ECDs and I think another sector there, but the same law allows for public participation. If the governor and his team engage in public participation and the public is telling them that school A in our area really requires extra classrooms, I think through public participation, and is agreed, the county governments should be allowed to help in building the infrastructure. That should be a way to go, so that we are building these things together, both the county government and national government, so that nobody looks at it as a governor. I don't say that is not my responsibility. Yet, the children are local. The children belong to that county. Yeah? So if as a county government we are saying secondary school A, and allow me to use school at home, maybe Honorable Musalia would understand it better. Ivona Secondary School is a day school. And my county governor says he cannot put resources as Ivona Secondary because it belongs to the national government. 80% of the children going to Ivona Secondary School are from the locality. Yeah? The governor is the governor of that local area. So he cannot abdicate, he or she cannot abdicate some responsibility because the law has said. Let us allow public participation. The law should be flexible, yeah, to allow governors to engage the public. And if the public say, we need 2 classrooms here in this secondary school, in this primary school, then it should be done.
Okay, Mwalimu, and maybe finally, and I'm not trying to harass you, but
no.
I'm just trying to see, to understand. You are a professional, you are a practitioner, so you know better than I do. I was in a school in Wajir, in a place called Tarbaj, about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I spoke to one of the teachers there, and majority of the teachers in that school were, I think I met a teacher from Bomet, and I met a teacher from Muranga. And it is contributing to this constant problem of schools in, especially northern Kenya. As a teacher,
yes,
what would you recommend? Because while I was at the Ministry of Education, we tried to provide affirmative action in teacher training for people coming from localities in northern Kenya. Because it is contributing to the low standards of education in northern Kenya, that most of the teachers are from very far. So whenever there is a challenge, the teachers go away and the students are stranded. What would you, as a practitioner and as a leader of the teaching fraternity, suggest to policymakers like us in terms of getting the communities there to appreciate that they need to make a contribution of people who can be trained so that they can, understanding the locality and the challenges thereof, they can better deliver education to children in those localities. What are your thoughts? What do you think?
Every child in Kenya requires a trained teacher across. I may not really advocate for what we call the affirmative action, so that the teachers in those areas maybe are taken in at lower entry point, for example. Because eventually this teacher will need to teach elsewhere in Kenya. We may not just go and find them there. My view would be government must ensure security. for all Kenyans and for the people up there. Secondly, we can enumerate this teacher slightly better. I'm borrowing a leaf from some times back when we didn't have enough teachers of science in the country. What did government do? It ensured that when you are graduating and get into the teaching profession and you are a science teacher, your salary was a few shillings higher than one who was not a science teacher. Could we say, therefore, in these areas that are challenging and a teacher A is posted there, can we add something on top of his salary? Because in Northeastern, there are teachers from elsewhere, but they are in private schools. Why are they there? And in public schools, the teachers have run away. They are there because they are better paid. So we do the same here. Yeah.
So, precisely, that was, I was asking that question. So the affirmative action is in paying a little bit more.
A little bit more.
So that we can retain teachers in those areas. But the primary thing is we must provide security.
We must provide security for the teachers to be there.
Let me ask differently, because I have had engagement with leaders from northern Kenya. And we try to persuade them that the community in northern Kenya, mostly, they are not keen on the teaching profession.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on how we can encourage local communities to understand that being available to teach is a noble profession? And how do, a mechanism for us to encourage them? Maybe the one you have suggested on maybe paying them better would work.
Or even we can look at for children in that area. The government can get out of its way and say, children from Northeastern who have qualified and are going to take education to become teachers, they will go into training fully funded by government. Yeah. So that they don't have to pay anything. It's an incentive to them because they'll feel, okay, now I'll go to the university, study, and I'll not pay. And I'll not be charged even later to pay. Let it be like a full government-sponsored scholarship for them. But what I'm not agreeing is we can't lower the grades for them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I fully support what you're saying, Mwalimu, that lowering the grades is not an option.
Yes.
What we can do, and maybe I can speak of my own experience. I went to Lamu and Tana River, and I've had to sponsor personally 100 teachers to go to college, so that they can go back and be teachers in
the same area,
in the locality, because they understand the locality is better. So maybe we can open up opportunities for people who want to train as teachers from those areas, and look at a mechanism where we can provide bursaries so that we can encourage more people from those localities with challenges to turn up for teaching. And then we can add what you have suggested, that we can also provide maybe what you call hardship allowance, so that they can teach in those difficult areas.
Yes,
thank you very much for your thoughts. Maybe my good brother here.
Mwalimu.
Yes.
My name is Moses Wetangula. I went to a day school.
Yes.
From Form 1 to 4. And I agree with you that there is no difficulty at all in people succeeding through day schools. Now, some 1-2 years ago, or probably 3, there was a big shakeup of teachers being uprooted from one region to another, from one county to another, in a process called delocalization. And the complaints I've been having is that this has split families, has created a lot of difficulties, especially for elderly teachers. A man of your age is uprooted from home and taken 200, 300 kilometers away without a family. You now have to live a bachelor life and so on. How has this impacted on the production from these teachers? And going forward, what would be your thoughts in how to deal with this situation? I once visited TSC and I was told by senior officials there that they don't want to have teacher couples teaching in the same schools. Yet when we were going to school, and those days were missionary days, you found there was a white man and his wife in the same school, teaching very well without any issues and making us pass exams. What do you think we need as Kenya Kwanza government to address this issue so that teachers are not only well remunerated, but they also are comfortable in their family lives and therefore more productive?
Thank you. That's a very good question, and it's something that has been very emotive. Number one, a teacher is a national resource. A trained teacher is a national resource. I believe that the right point of we wouldn't like to use the word delocalization. The right time to nationalize this teacher is at the point of employment. Because the teacher is younger, the teacher is energetic, yeah, and is ready to venture into various areas. I take myself as an example. When I graduated in 1986, my first posting was on Rusinga Island. Rusinga Island. I was a lawyer there. There was no other lawyer. There were Luos. So I was interacting with the parents who could not even talk Kiswahili. When I became a deputy, I was forced to learn Luo, yeah, so that I'm able to communicate. But today, when I was moved to Machakos, I've now taken 4 years. I cannot communicate in Kikamba because of my age. You see? So the right point of place of nationalization is at the point of employment. The teacher will interact with the local community there. The teachers are energetic. They will venture. They will end up marrying, and it will also help in integration. So that as the teachers become older, they are moved closer home. That is what I would feel. So that when you reach 55 years, the employer should now start thinking of taking you closer home so that you can take a rest instead of traveling very long distances. That is why, as you said, in some cases, those who are delocalized were demoralized, and it contributed to a little bit of, it affected their performance. It is only those who maybe had had an experience of working away from home that did not feel it much, though they felt it. So if we nationalize the teacher at the point of employment, it would be much better than having allowed the teacher to work at home, grown there. So, then, of course, when it comes to issues of management of our institutions, then again, we need to think, because the issues of management, a good manager would be available for the country. Yeah? So maybe at management point, We need to look at the age at that point of management. If you are moving somebody at the age of 55, though a good manager, that becomes a challenge psychologically, spiritually to him. But if this manager is around 40 years, you can easily move. So 2 points, at the point of employment, at level of management, but at management, we look at the age. Yes.
So Mwalimu, I think that's a very potent, and as you've said yourself, it's a rather controversial issue. What do you think? And first, I think you have agreed that teachers or teachers are a national resource.
Yes.
So the nationalization agenda is okay.
It's okay.
But at what point is now what we need to work out?
Yes.
Right? Instead of making it punitive, can we turn it around and say a teacher who is willing to serve away from their county or their home gets an allowance for participating in the nationalization agenda?
That is very true.
Maybe that way we can achieve the intention of creating a national teaching
body. We
force,
have teachers without borders.
Without borders,
Yeah.
without necessarily making it look like punitive.
Punitive, yeah.
Yeah.
In all fairness, it shouldn't appear that when you are moving this teacher, it shouldn't appear as a punishment.
Yes.
It should be that your services are actually now needed here. And
Yeah.
if you are ready to take it up.
And it should
there
be
will
voluntary, number one,
yes.
and it should have some incentives.
It should have incentives.
Yeah, that I am willing to participate in the nationalization agenda.
Yes.
And I'm willing to teach away from home.
That is true.
Maybe we give you a special consideration.
That is true. Because if you look at the UNESCO Charter, they look at teaching and a teacher for the locality, because the teacher should understand the culture, should understand the morals of the area, So you find when he's in his own local or her own local community, they will be comfortable. So if they have to move into a new community to start interacting with a different culture, then we should incentivize that one. I agree with you.
So, as Kenya Kwanza, we
Mike.
This one is working? Okay, thank you. So your suggestion is that we should explore how we can carry out this nationalization agenda first at employment level. Secondly, we try and make it voluntary. And thirdly, we incentivize the process so that people who feel they want to participate in this national agenda, which is a very positive agenda, they can then maybe get an incentive, maybe a small stipend or an allowance, so that we can promote the same value without necessarily making it look like it is punitive. Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
On again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Ah, okay. Ndimuli. Yeah, yes, we come from the same village. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Quick one, slightly deviating. As the head of the Heads Association and a practitioner in matters of education, there is something that is interesting, and we need to just get some clarification. What is the level of the crisis of drug abuse? Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
What is the level of the drug abuse crisis? And two, what measures have educational institutions been putting in place to deal with the drug menace? And three, we have seen in the political arena, there are some people who are now masquerading on the basis that they will allow a certain form of drug to become commercialized. You know, this is a very serious matter, I believe, but as a practitioner,
yes.
What would you want to say about this, and what are the dangers that we are looking at?
Thank you very much. First of all, as I said, we have boards of management that need to be empowered to perform their mandate. One of their mandate is ensuring a disciplined institution. Today, our biggest challenge in schools, and especially secondary schools, is the issue of drug and drug abuse. And the biggest drug that is abused is cannabis, bangi. The challenge is we are not able sometimes to prove, because sometimes when you catch them even smoking and they throw it maybe in a pit latrine, you have no evidence. And the law will always ask for evidence. And that is why, as Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, we started a debate that we want random drug testing in schools. I know people don't like it, but we will need to take that bold step. Because if we can subject our sportsmen and women to random drug testing, when they are off events or within season, they are tested. And if they are found culpable, they are maybe banned for 4 years, isn't it, or more. Why are we finding it very difficult to look at our laws and change and make it mandatory? Because that is the only evidence we can have to sanction a child. But the issue of drugs is real. But we have no laws that are helping educational institutions to fight the menace. The only thing we will have is we suspend. When we suspend, they will come back. If you want to isolate them from the school, the process is laborious. And the Education Act goes ahead and empowers the minister to ensure that all school-going children remain in school. So even when you recommend to the minister that this child needs to be isolated and taken to maybe another institution, the minister will write back and say, you readmit. Because the law also does not allow him to isolate children. What are we proposing? We have been saying we must reintroduce and build the capacity of our Boston institutions, where this way children in drugs, children whose discipline is just wayward, can be taken to those institutions where they can continue learning and measures of discipline are undertaken, so that we leave the regular schools to manage the regular students. Those that have already proved to be unmanageable, then the teachers have no capacity to manage them. Let them go to an institution where we have people trained to manage such students and at the same time allowed to continue. So when we recommend as principle, isolate this one from this community, we expect government to now pick that student and take that student to an institution that can now manage him better or her, but allow the students to continue learning. So that is the challenge we have been having, but it is a big problem. I know one parent asked me just recently when we were dealing with the case, and he asked me, now Mwalimu, when somebody takes over and this is going to be grown, what will you do when they smoke? I said, I'll wait until he takes over and allows people to smoke. But if he does not allow people to smoke, we shall still punish those who will smoke, because he will only have a policy of growing, but not smoking. Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Mwalimu, sorry we've taken too long with you.
No, it's okay.
When we were growing up, there was always the disciplinary measures taken by teachers.
Yes.
The cane.
Yes.
The Children's Act outlawed the cane.
Yes.
And I keep receiving parents when I'm at home who say, Mheshimiwa, my child is looking like he's going astray. I want you to help me take this child to school for the teachers to punish him for me. And he's still looking for the cane. What are your thoughts about the levels of disciplinary measures that need to be taken? Because some of these children, when they start engaging in bad habits, testing ganja or bangi as it's called, when you arrest this situation through some form of punishment, they change. Because you can't just kick out every child who smoked bang to go to an institution when you could even have corrected them. What are your thoughts about levels of disciplining children in schools?
Thank you. The issue of discipline, I think, is very challenging today. The cane, as it was there when we went to school. But you'll agree with me also, it was sometimes wrongly used. And it ended up injuring students. And that is why it became a national conversation, international, until it was outlawed. But when the Children's Act was introduced, we failed to do one thing. We did not develop regulations to operationalize that Children's Act in learning institutions. And since there were no regulations, the teacher was left vulnerable to the act. So that even if I slapped the child or I quarreled the child, they are all classified as corporal punishment. So that has made it very difficult. And parents and the children know that I cannot be abused, I cannot be slapped, I cannot be caned. And when I'm caned, I raise it up with the Teacher Service Commission. Teacher Service Commission follows the law, you will be interdicted. So we need to first operationalize that. Secondly, the guidance and counseling issues, we are always told guide and counsel. But guidance and counseling is not one-off. It is a process. That process takes time. The teacher in charge of that department also has another teaching load. So provision of guidance and counseling services in our institutions are not to the level that is required. Because those given that responsibility have the other teaching subjects which they need to attend to. So they spare very little time, maybe at games time. That is not enough. Yeah? So it would be important that as we strengthen this guidance and counseling, maybe government can employ professionally trained guidance and counseling people attached to the school, and let the teachers do their responsibility to teach the subjects they trained in. But we have professional counselors within the institution.
Thank you very much, Mwalimu, for your wealth of
Thank you.
ideas. I think the takeaway we get from you on that particular subject is maybe we need to look at the Children's Act regulations,
Yes.
and to see how it can be customized in schools,
Yes.
to help the teachers assist the students to, especially on matters of discipline, in a manner that the parents and the teachers are involved, so that we can have discipline in schools.
Good.
Without necessarily bringing back all the cane issues and all the other things. I think there could be other mechanisms that can be put in the regulations that can assist schools to run better, especially on matters of discipline to students.
True.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you also. It's an honor to engage with Your Excellency and with the party leader.